Don't get me started on the registry. Only the cheap stuff is gone. What's up, my little enzymes? Welcome back to Dacia's Digest. The topic of today's video is Weddingzilla woes. So it's not just Bridezillas, it's like Sisterzillas, Groomzillas, everything Zilla wedding related. We have a few stories to get through today. So if you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get into it. How on earth do I deal with this bride? Issue: I'm really stressed out about this couple who's been a major bridezilla and annoying about the photos I gave them 2 weeks ago. The first step was that they are blurry and she's not happy. Fair enough. I got more info and solved the issue. It was the wrong exporting settings, which got set to default when I installed Lightroom again on a new laptop. My fault, so I made necessary changes. She then started zooming in all the photos one by one to point out that all photos are blurry. This was her exact comment. Can you please run through all the photos, as when I zoomed in a bit, it becomes blurry. Okay, fine. 60%, 80% zoom, but you can't do a 150 to 200% zoom on every freaking picture and expect total sharpness. I shared some of my other clients' galleries to show her that what I gave is what I gave everyone else. She chose to sign the contract then based on this. Now she is demanding all raw pictures and giving me a list of around 120 photos, more than a third of the photos I gave, and is pointing out which parts are the issues, minor blurs, blemishes, one person's eyes in a group photo of 30, etc. I said okay to the raws as I was at wit's end with the arguing. I am hitting my limits at this point, as she started calling me in the middle of work, i.e. other shoots, demanding all sorts of things. I am worried that if I don't pick up, she'll review badly or do something drastic to my business. What do I do? What does the contract say? She can get whatever the contract says. And if the photos genuinely aren't terrible and like she's having to zoom in 2x in order to see something wrong with them and then having you fix all these other things on all these other random photos, what does the contract say? If you were able to deliver what you signed up to deliver, then that's it. Sometimes you will get a bad review, and it's not the end of the world, but you also can't people please and try to fix everyone's issues, because then they're going to take advantage of it, and this is never going to end. The first comment says, learn to say no and stop explaining yourself. She is running you in a circle, and because you have not drawn a firm line, she is abusing it. And someone responded exactly this. Also, consult an attorney for advice on how to handle it and how to end the calls and harassment. The Red 467 says your contract is delivering as it states. An NDA is perfect for this kind of bride. Now, where's that shiny spine and stick to your contract? That's why you have them. Another person, all I know is that my photography team, husband and wife super duo, gave us all the raw pictures from the day. I wanted them all because I'm a greedy little picture hoarder. Because it was important to me, I confirmed this verbally, and we discussed where that requirement was reflected in the contract. It was also standard practice for them. My point, I agree with you that if it was important to them, they should have confirmed. Opie said, I understand if they asked about it beforehand. I have a clause that I include in my contract for people I give my raws to prevent re-edited raws from being judged as photos I took and edited wrongly, and to prevent use for public so that it doesn't misinterpret my work. I am agreeing to give them to her if she signs that one clause first, but she doesn't want to, as it's too legally binding, which makes me worried on what she plans on using them for. This is the main issue here. Eureka says, I am not a photographer, but I do a lot of negotiating with people in my job, and I think you are causing yourself a lot of pain. You think you're being nice and giving concessions to make her happy, but you are not. Every time you make a concession, you are telling her that you think her arguments have merit, that you screwed up or made mistakes, and she should just keep pushing. Going forward, ensure that your contract outlines everything that you can think of, and then stick to the contract. So her first edit 1, blurry is not the only issue here. She's started a whole new issue with, I don't like the vibrancy and colors in the photos. This one, I can guarantee that it is exactly the same as my past works. I've had multiple people around me check that. It feels like she's just looking for issues to be unhappy about it. Edit 2, I am doing 1 round of re-editing out of goodwill by running all the images through an AI sharpening tool, Topaz. I know my photos are good enough, but just to give her another option, after that, I am done. I do think her pickiness is not directly because of my work itself, but rather buyer's remorse for choosing a photographer. Me, she regrets choosing because it's not the style she was looking for. My contract states these 2 points: full X amount of hours coverage and give all edited photos. She assumed that this means every photo taken during the X amount of hours will be given back. For example, all RAWs will be given, plus all will be edited. I already showed her the clause that photos will be filtered and edited based on photographer's discretion. But she's arguing that the 2 points I made, plus her misunderstanding, is the reason why she booked me. She blames me that these conditions were too confusing to understand when the wedding was booked 6 months before and she could have clarified and re-signed anytime. I told her that to release all RAWs to her, I will need her to sign an NDA, but she's arguing again that I am not delivering as promised and an NDA is too legally binding for her and she doesn't want that sort of commitment. Yet, she's still asking for all the RAWs. I offered all RAWs at a small fee, but was willing to waive that to solve this issue. But the NDA is important, especially with a client like this who may use them to discredit my work. I am seriously at a loss for words and not sure how to deal with this anymore. Girl, I would just stop answering her messages. After I delivered what I was supposed to deliver and I gave her the edits that she wanted, that's it. I'm not responding to you anymore. I'm not doing this back and forth with you anymore. Either you're going to sign the NDA and get all the RAWs that you want, or we have nothing else to discuss. Now, I will say the verbiage in the contract does sound like it needs some work, because give all edited photos, I guess I can see how that could be confusing, how somebody could think, oh, she's gonna edit all the photos and give me all the edited photos. I could see how that could be confusing. So maybe she can think about reworking her contract and also adding in some extra things to cover herself. But this is why I am not a service provider. It's too much. Dealing with customers is just too much. All right, here is the second story. Sister-in-law has lost her mind. Warning, long and ranting. Throwaway because this is easily identifiable and I don't want it linked back to my main account. TLDR at the end. This is a bit long, so let me stretch. Background: dear husband and I have been married for 7 years. His only request for our wedding was to include sister-in-law, mother-in-law, and father-in-law in some way. Sister-in-law and brother ended up being our witnesses as we had no bridesmaids or groomsmen. I used to organize large and small-scale events professionally and can work with pretty much any budget or interests. I offered to help, free of charge, and was ignored. Dear husband is sister-in-law's only sibling. He was not invited to participate or help in any way. Sister-in-law is in her late 40s. She has no children and is a self-absorbed hipster. Her dear husband is in his late 50s with 4 grown children from a previous marriage. He is a tragic hipster. Tight jeans, suede Chelsea boots, non-ironic plaid, man bun, and pretentious. Not my favorite person, but I am not the one who must spend any time with him. Even my ever-polite mother-in-law finds him boring, and she could probably find something nice to say about Idi Amin. Who is that? Idi Amin. I wonder where they're from. That's such a weird reference. I've never heard that before. Anyways, my sister-in-law is getting married this weekend. She has been planning her wedding for over a year. Oh, I said her dear husband. It's actually her future husband. So sister-in-law is not married yet, but my sister-in-law is planning to get married this weekend. She has been planning her wedding for over a year and is getting married in the middle of nowhere in a national park. It is a half-hour drive from the closest place for a family to stay along winding tracks. It is over a 6-hour drive from our home. She does not live in this area or live close, come from this area, or have a particular need to have the event at such a remote corner of this area. It is a busy summer weekend, and the area is a massive draw for tourists, so everywhere to stay has a 2-night minimum. We had accommodations sorted through my mother-in-law, who wanted us to stay until mid next week and do the 6-hour drive home on my birthday. My dear husband and I have small daughters who were asked to be flower girls despite sister-in-law meeting them 4 times during their entire lives. The dresses are frankly hideous. Navy blue polyester satin with an ugly bow in chartreuse, and sister-in-law requested that we buy them shoes and a floral headpiece that would cost $130 per child. Okay. Her maid of honor suggested putting it on a credit card. We can afford this kind of crap, but for shoes with laces, they are too young to be able to do them up themselves, and getting them on would be like trying to put ice skates on an octopus that they will grow out of in 3 months. Yeah, no. I found an alternative that is suitable in the right color that she eventually tolerated. She wants her bridal party and flower girls to go down the aisle after her. Weird, but fine. Her bridal party is 5 bridesmaids, including the maid of honor, and 4 flower girls. Future husband has 4 groomsmen. This is for a wedding with 60 guests, so 25% of the total attendees would be standing at the altar. Yet, somehow, dear husband doesn't get a role of any kind. Not an usher, not a witness, nothing. When I heard about this, I started thinking that maybe sister-in-law was becoming something of a bridezilla. I'm not gonna lie, up until now, nothing that she has said is anything out of the ordinary, really, for me. Yeah, she picked sort of a weird location for the wedding, but I mean, wherever she wants to have it is where she wants to have it. I feel like she has the right to kind of say what the flower girls wear, even though it might be a bit expensive or whatever. Now, the comment about putting the flower crown on a credit card was crazy, but other than that, it seems okay so far. And I guess it is weird that she doesn't have her brother participating in it for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe they don't have a good relationship. I don't know. So I guess let me just keep reading so far. And it's not exactly how I would do it, but I don't really see anything out of the ordinary. Her location is a farm. Her dress code is cocktail attire. Her ceremony seating is hay bales. As someone with fairly severe hay allergies and a need to be able to drive, more on that later, this was going to be painful, and it would have been torture on an 83-year-old family friend who recently had a double hip replacement. When asked to provide a chair for him, the response was it would ruin the photos. When asked if our daughters, who she demanded be at the location 2 hours earlier than anyone else, could get changed upon arrival, we were told that there wouldn't be a room available. The ceremony is mid-afternoon with drinks and nibbles served before dinner at 6:30 p.m. My children go to bed half an hour drive away at 6:45 p.m. Sister-in-law suggested that I ask them to wake up later in the morning so that they could stay for the meal. Sister-in-law has never interacted much with small children. When this was rejected as an option, she suggested that my parents drive 6 hours to collect the children in the evening and take them back to our accommodation, where there was not a room for them. They would not be invited to the wedding, nor would they want to come, to be honest, and everything in the area is booked. Perhaps they could rent a camper van. No. They were to cat sit for us at our home and celebrate a birthday with friends. Okay, that part I don't agree with. So she wants her sister-in-law's parents to bring the girls a 6-hour drive. No, that's too much. Said maybe they could rent a camper van. So you want these people who are not going to be participating in your wedding in any way to drive 6 hours, stay overnight in a camper van because there's no hotels available, just to drive 6 hours back. The location has 6 bedrooms on site as well as camping plots for double tents. Sister-in-law and future husband are in one room, his 2 older children and partners are in 2 rooms. His other 2 children are sharing the 4th, his mother, an alcoholic in her late 80s, and his best man, an alcoholic in his late 50s, have the 5th and 6th. It was suggested that we camp a shared toilet block 100 yards away, but that the children would need to be wary of the partially concealed stream in the camping field and that the 2 tents would not necessarily be near each other. Okay, this part I'm not agreeing with at all. I am curious as to why she chose this location. It just seems so random, but then you have these guests having to make all these accommodations with where they're gonna stay and sleep, when I feel like there's 6 I don't know, I feel like you could have tried to make it work. So far, so entitled. Fine. We made our peace with showing up, having a terrible time, smiling for the mandatory photos, and never thinking about it again. Then, last Friday, my sister-in-law dropped a fun bombshell in a perfunctory text. Hi there, wanted to let you know so you weren't surprised that I invited your ex to the wedding. She's an important friend to me, and I hope we can all have a good time at my wedding with fun and peace. Okay, I see what she's trying to do now. Wow. So she has OP, her sister-in-law, in the wedding, but she doesn't have OP's husband in the wedding, meaning that he will be free to be with the guests. He won't be occupied with all the wedding festivities, and then invited the husband's ex, meaning that they plan on, in those free moments, having them be able to have like time to connect or talk to each other. This sounds like a setup. Neither he nor I knew that his ex was a friend of sister-in-law. She has never mentioned this person in the decade that I have known her. The ex lives a long haul flight away. This is not a last-minute thing. Dear husband has spent over 12 years trying to get past the trauma of the relationship and the damage it did to him. He is finally in a mentally really healthy space, and yet sister-in-law thinks that dropping this on him a week before is okay. Nope. Sounds like a terrible sister. I went into full mama bear mode and pulled my children and myself out. My dear husband was crying, trying to figure out what exactly was going on. I wrote to mother-in-law telling her that dear husband was still willing to go and that we would all go to butt freak nowhere as accommodation is booked, but that the 3 of us would stay home and enjoy a day of exploring in the area. Mother-in-law wrote back, uninviting us on the entire trip. Dear husband shut down completely. I called mother-in-law and she finally admitted that she had known the ex was coming for 6 months, but that sister-in-law had asked her not to tell us so she could tell us in her own time. Mother-in-law didn't want to do anything to distract or ruin sister-in-law's happy day. What is going on here? The outcome of this nightmare is that we aren't going to the middle of nowhere, saving us 12 hours of driving. We have gone completely no contact with sister-in-law, and we never liked the future brother-in-law anyway, so definitely no loss there, and have decided not to see or communicate with mother-in-law or father-in-law for the foreseeable future. They have no other grandchildren, and I know I'm being punitive by keeping them apart, but I am furious beyond words. Dear husband is distraught, and I am so angry on his behalf that I hope I never see his family again, lest I say something unpleasant. That's terrible. TLDR, self-absorbed sister-in-law and douchebag future brother-in-law have organized the wedding from hell. A week before, sister-in-law drops on us that she has invited my husband's ex. Mother-in-law knew all along and did sister-in-law's bidding in not telling us, much to my husband's detriment. We are no longer attending the wedding and have gone no contact with his family. My husband is heartbroken. I just don't understand why you would willingly use your wedding day to invite all this drama and discord into the day. And she must really not like OP, because why are you inviting your brother's ex from 10 years ago who caused him trauma and who he had to spend all this time getting over? And then what was the ex's like? Is she okay with, like, what is her response? Is she okay with this arrangement? Like, so now given this, I see now that her actions were nefarious, and choosing this place all in the middle of nowhere where they have to drive all this way 6 hours and find a place to stay and this and this and that and try to. So for the comments, that's just nutso Twilight Zone stuff right there. Sister-in-law must really hate her brother, and y'all, no big loss on not participating in this crap show. Okie Lady responded, she withheld this information on purpose, thinking there was no way you would all pull out just a week before. Surprise! Play stupid games and win stupid prizes. Sister-in-law is truly a bee, and doing this to her own brother. His mother keeping it a secret is so wrong also. She is also an a-hole. Someone said, I'd like to hear about how you get your kids to go to bed at 6:45 p.m. Anon Pink Glitter says, the way you told this story, I thought you were going to be the villain. There is missing info here. That said, from what you've related, it sounds like skipping the wedding was a good idea. Yeah, the way she was telling it at the beginning, I was kind of like confused, like what's really wrong, but I think it all tied together in the end. Limmers said, you know, all your petty BS at the beginning really takes away from the actual crap behavior buried at the end. And Happy 35353 said, yeah, there's a lot of insults being thrown at people who are not really relevant to the story. Mama of Many Cats said, I didn't even care about the end. Her husband has been with her for years and has 2 kids with her, but he broke down crying because the ex he spent 12 years getting over is coming to the wedding. That doesn't scream healthy or moved on. Yikes. I'm not sure if he was crying about the ex. I think he was more so just crying about the situation and like being betrayed by the sister. I don't know, at least that's what I want to believe. But Microcosmic Unicorn, I actually stopped reading before OP got to the point because the way she just went on judging her sister-in-law and her fiance for literally no reason, she had me rolling my eyes extremely hard. Oh my god, sister and her fiance are such tragic hipsters who dress ridiculously and want to have their wedding in such a dumb location. Instead of accepting the meddling help I so graciously offered because I'm an experienced event planner. Like, girl, you have 0 leg to stand on, calling someone self-absorbed. One signature says, this is so true. Even when she wore down the bride on the shoes and other accessories when she said that she could afford it, or even when she got upset about dinner time versus her daughter's bedtime. I think anything sister-in-law did would have been a problem. The entire time reading, I was wondering why she was making every wedding decision the sister-in-law made about her and the inconvenience it was causing her. The sister-in-law definitely did some crazy stuff, but my goodness, OP, look in the mirror, sis. Someone said throwing in the alcoholic family members. What does that have to do with anything? OP sounds more insufferable than the bride. I mean, I tend to agree with the comments. Like, yes, what sister-in-law did was crazy, but the way that this OP laid the story out, it came off very judgy and had a lot of unnecessary details. It doesn't sound like her and sister-in-law are on good terms. So here's the first update. Update: sister-in-law has lost her mind. It has been so interesting to read the comments coming through. Just as a quick update to the comments, and then she goes and essentially ats or mentions the people who commented by their username and responds to these people directly within the update. So she responds to user Limmers and Gorgo. My husband's ex stole a huge amount of money from him and was physically harmful. He ended up in the hospital multiple times, only to be told that, as a larger man, she wasn't culpable. He had PTSD for years on top of anxiety. He's always had it and has made amazing progress. The thought of having to see her again pulled him back to a very dark spot in his history that he had worked really hard to get past. That's messed up. I do feel for the husband in this situation because he's like the real victim in all of this. That's not right. Then she responded to user Altitude Adjusted and said the children are 4-year-old twins. I am a judgmental B. I never claimed not to be. My future brother-in-law is a douchebag who has no money, no prospect of ever having any money, is ugly, not my opinion only, and has an unpleasant demeanor. I can only imagine that my sister-in-law thinks he's good in bed, as no one I know who has met him can find any redeeming features, including mother-in-law and father-in-law. Dang! OP sounds kind of mean. Oh my goodness, this lady is a little bit ruthless. Honestly, her and sister-in-law probably are a match made in heaven. Then she responded to user Bountiful Knitter and said, alcoholism is not relevant, but it is something I find utterly distasteful when no attempt is made to curb it. I am aware it is an addiction, etc., but there are so many ways that it can be managed without negative impact on others. Future brother-in-law's mom starts drinking at 9 a.m. and becomes rude and aggressive by 2 p.m., so will probably be completely sloshed by 3 p.m. when the ceremony starts. We haven't heard anything from any of the family at all, and I don't care about it. Kisses and hugs. Okay, next update. My children were a little sad, but I convinced them to dress up for a family birthday in their special shoes, nicest dresses, not the hideous bridesmaid ones that were thankfully never posted to us, and pretty headbands. They seemed happy enough. My dear husband was a bit stressed until after the time in the morning when he couldn't have made it to the venue even if he had wanted to. He ended up taking a nap at the time of the ceremony and commented afterwards that he slept through my sister's first wedding. I received a birthday card from mother-in-law postmarked from the area of the wedding venue. I returned it to sender. I am not interested in whatever BS she may have written, but knowing her, she will have avoided anything of note. I wish I had something more interesting to report, that they had been washed away in a flood or all been poisoned by the canapes, but I haven't heard or seen anything about the event at all. This lady. This lady is hilarious. Last update. Update 3, sister-in-law has lost her mind. So we haven't heard from mother-in-law, father-in-law, sister-in-law, or new brother-in-law. I am a little surprised that mother-in-law and father-in-law haven't tried to contact dear husband, as our grandchildren are their only grandchildren. Does anyone have any hypotheses as to what might have happened with them? Dear husband has gone into denial / not dealing with it mode. We have busy lives anyway and are going away this weekend without the children. Thanks, Mom and Dad. So we have plenty to keep us busy. We have removed sister-in-law from our wills, as she was originally a trustee for our children and an executor, as well as a beneficiary should all 4 of us pass. Now she gets bupkis. Not particularly vindictive, as it was unlikely she would inherit, although as a trustee, she would have been paid decently well, and would have been able to embezzle a lot more should the urge have arisen. Any and all ideas for how we should proceed would be of interest. Go wild. Let me just make sure she doesn't have... Yeah, that was the last. Well, hey, it seems like everything is okay now. They didn't go to the wedding and they haven't heard from the in-law. I mean, I hope everybody is okay. It's kind of weird that they haven't heard from anyone or seen anything online or anything, but I guess that's it. Let's go to the next post. So this is just a meme that I saw when I was looking up Bridezilla stories. So I'll read it. It looks like it was a Facebook post. The title of the post is, "I wonder why no one wants to go to her wedding." So here's the post. I'm gonna read it in my entitled character voice. At the risk of sounding entitled, I have to vent today. When we invited our friends and family to our destination wedding in Thailand, only 9 people RSVP'd out of 150. Okay, I get it. Paying $3,000 to share my special day is too much for some of you. I'd pay for yours, but whatever. But then we changed the wedding to be in Hawaii, so it's within everyone's reach. Only 7 of you RSVP'd. It costs less, but less of you want to come? Is that what you think of my fiance and me? You can't spare $2,000 to come share our happiness. I'm tempted to just elope and not let any of you be a part of our happiest day. This is it, guys. You have 3 days to respond to our evites, or we're deleting you off of Facebook, and good luck keeping up with our lives then. And don't get me started on the registry. Only the cheap stuff is gone. I swear I thought I had better friends. Fiance and I are asking you to reconsider. Oh, man. People have to understand that when you have a destination wedding or even a trip that you're inviting people on, whether it be a birthday trip, whatever, people have to be very strategic with their time and resources. Not everybody can just drop $3,000 on a wedding trip. And that seems like it's just the trip. Then they have to think about the food and what they're gonna wear and whatever other expenses might arise. That's a lot for someone else's wedding, which you have no control over the destination. And then you have to consider, like, if you work a salary job, getting PTO, using your PTO for however amount of time. That's a lot to ask of people. And then even she put it down to 2, she moved it to Hawaii. It seems that, I don't know. I feel like when people have destination weddings, they should expect that not a lot of people are going to come. I went to a destination wedding, I think last year or the year before that, and there was that expectation that a lot of people are probably not going to be able to come because of the price. And I think I ended up spending like, probably around $2,000 to $3,000 just attending, like the flights. You had to pay for the resort. It was an all-inclusive resort. And then, yeah, it was a lot of expenses or whatever. I went because, like, you know, I wanted to, but not everyone has that option. So maybe she should have it stateside. Maybe more people would come. So for the comments, every Caterpillar 945 said, If only 7 of 100 people RSVP'd yes, then why should anyone care if they elope? 143 people already aren't coming. The other 7 would most likely feel relieved if the whole thing got canceled. So what's really the point about this threat? She didn't even say 7 were coming, just that 7 RSVP'd. It may be that 7 responded that they couldn't afford the trip. Of course, it's also possible that she's too stupid to know what RSVP means, and it was 7 people that said yes, and the majority told her no, and she thinks RSVP means to reserve their spot and not respond. It would take a special kind of stupid to only count the people attending as people that RSVP'd, but she has the makings of that special kind of stupid. Fun fact, RSVP is actually an acronym for a French term that is Répondez s'il vous plaît, which is respond please. Yeah, répondez s'il vous plaît. Respond if you please. And that's where people get the RSVP.
Let's look at how to pronounce this expression. Répondez s'il vous plaît.
Répondez s'il vous plaît. My French accent is terrible. Fun fact, I also took French for several years in grade school. I really like learning languages. I like to be able to communicate effectively, and I also like to be able to communicate with different types of people who I otherwise may not have been able to communicate with. This is a tangent, but my current boyfriend is Arab, so I've been trying to learn Arabic. That's a whole nother ball game, because not only do you have to learn like the sounds and everything, they read from right to left, which is a whole nother thing, and then they use different characters. They don't use the English alphabet, so it's tough. There's a lot of rules and but I really like learning languages. I want to do like a language immersion thing, because I feel like that's one of the best ways to learn, but I just, yeah, maybe one day. All right, next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend she was selfish for making her own plans on my wedding day? My friend and I are both 27 female and have been friends since we were 8 years old. I got married this past April, and she was a bridesmaid in the wedding. About 9 months out from the wedding, I learned from my maid of honor that because this friend doesn't want to pay for a hotel room, she instead had texted the entire bridal party, excluding me and the groom, about booking a large Airbnb together with their significant others. Maid of honor said the group text indicated that this Airbnb was for the bridal party but not the bride and groom. This Airbnb plan ultimately fizzled out, but I texted my friend / bridesmaid to just talk with her about how it bothered me that she was trying to make new plans for my wedding party for my wedding weekend without saying anything to me or my now husband. She was very defensive and told me it wasn't a big deal and dismissed my feelings entirely. The conversation ended and we just didn't have a reason to talk for a while. Fast forward to my bachelorette weekend and lots of wine, and she made some comment about the lodging for my wedding weekend, and I snapped at her in front of everyone. I told her that she was selfish and only cared about what she wanted. Later that night, we tried to hash things out, and I apologized for snapping at her, but tried to explain that I did think she was selfish for trying to change my wedding plans without telling me, and then also dismissing me when I tried to talk to her about it. I told her it hurt my feelings that as a friend of almost 20 years, she could care so little about my intentions and opinions of my wedding. When I said she wouldn't appreciate it if the roles were reversed, she told me that she really couldn't entertain that hypothetical because she wasn't seeing anyone. We smoothed over the conversation that evening, but I'm not totally sure that either of us saw the other person's side. Then, leading up to the wedding, everything seemed normal again with us, and she was enthusiastic about the wedding and left me a thoughtful card on the day of. Now that the wedding is over, she doesn't speak to me. She didn't tell me she was coming to town multiple times or that she's moving to the area that I live in. Come to find out, she told another friend that she was just getting through the wedding and had planned to stop talking to me after. Am I the a-hole for telling her that was selfish? I don't really see anything that the friend really did wrong. Now, just thinking from my experience and referring back to the destination wedding that I just mentioned, my friend had it on an all-inclusive resort. So we essentially had to book rooms on the resort because if we didn't, it would cost more for her. Like it was a weird thing where if the guests didn't book at the resort, then they wouldn't be able to come onto the resort because you had to they had like security and stuff, and then it would cost them extra because they didn't have the guests. It was this whole thing. So just to avoid any of that, I was like, okay, it's not the cheapest option here, but I'm just gonna go with it to keep everything smooth and not cost more money for the bride. Now in that situation, yeah, just go with what the bride has set up. But in this situation, it doesn't really seem like something like that. It's just more that she doesn't want to pay for the hotel that they chose. So I don't know if I see anything wrong with just being like, hey, does anyone else want to put in on this Airbnb? The bride and groom weren't going to be in the Airbnb anyway. They're probably going to be in their own accommodations enjoying wedding life. So, and I think it was nice of her to essentially just kind of, as she said, get through the wedding, allow OP to have a good wedding experience. She even gave her a nice, thoughtful card on the day of, allow her to have nice memories and not cause any additional friction or drama. And then just after the wedding, let it be done. There's nothing additional that they need to talk about. You can't force anyone to be your friend. So, so the comments. MD Thomas commented, unless you were paying the bill for lodging, the others can stay where they want. Who cares where they sleep at night? The important part is being there for the wedding. What's the problem? Plans on where to sleep upset you? So after you had already talked about it, you brought it up again and in public? It sounds like you're the selfish one. She's her own person. She doesn't have to inform you of all her doings. Check your expectations. You're the a-hole. Right. Apathy is Beauty said, honestly, the friend deserves an award for putting up with OP for months, acting like she can dictate where people sleep, and the friend swallowed being called selfish by the actual selfish person, OP. I would have been out the first conversation about it because if OP had this many opinions about lodging arrangements, I can't even fathom what she was like at the actual wedding. That's gonna be a no from me, dog. Casparian said OP even posted this exact same thing here 9 months ago prior to the wedding when she first found out about the hypothetical Airbnb crisis. Imagine spending the better part of a year seething over this bridal party injustice. Inky Dark Dame said, I bet her life is a freaking nightmare, at least to her. To everyone else, it's probably an entitled perfect life of a princess. And Cute Shine responded, absolutely this. It's pathetic that OP's making a problem out of someone or a few people wanting cheaper accommodations for a weekend for themselves, which they pay for on their own. Sorry, for 2 weekends, her wedding weekend and her bachelorette weekend. Entitled spoiled brat much? You're the a-hole and double because it's topped off with mentally circling back to this huge transgression and betrayal for 8 to 9 months. If everyone would have so much free time and so little problems. Extra Aardvark says, quote, people who are constantly putting out fires tend to be arsonists, end quote. I read that in some book once, and I remember it when I meet someone like that. That's a good quote. Hey, it's Todd12 says, mind you, this wasn't even going to be a last minute change. I could almost see OP's point. if she expected her maid of honor to be nearby, and 2 weeks before the wedding, things had changed. Planning 9 months ahead for lodging would have given OP plenty of time to make whatever adjustments and schedule changes needed. And maybe the friend didn't want to tell her about it because, 1, OP should have had enough on her plate, and 2, it wasn't set in stone, and 3, like others have pointed out, it was none of her business. Yeah, let me see if she really did post about it when it happened 9 months before the wedding. She was really upset about this. She doesn't have any other post, and I feel like the comments pretty much sum up the sentiment. Like, unless there was a situation where, like in my case, the bride would have been affected by the people not booking at the hotel and it would have caused her more charges or whatever, then I could see why she's so upset. But it doesn't seem to be the case. It seems like she was just trying to be controlling, and then for her to snap at the friend in front of people, that's crazy. So I think she is the a-hole in that situation. Let's go to the next story. Am I the a-hole, or is she justified? This has a lot of pieces to it, so strap in and hang on. I, 40 female, was asked by my friend, 29 female, to be in her wedding. We had met through work and became fast friends. When she asked me to be in her wedding, I told her I'd prefer not to. That was stuff I did like 20 years ago, and I didn't really want to be the chubby old friend standing up there among all of the skinny 20-something bridesmaids. My family told me I was an a-hole for not agreeing to be in the wedding, and obviously she thought a lot of me if she asked, so I agreed to put my insecurities aside and be in the wedding. I had also agreed to be the florist for the wedding, as I am a professional wedding and event florist. Early on, we had discussed what she was thinking as far as flowers, centerpieces, other installments, etc. We also discussed her budget. I told her what she wanted was totally doable with her budget, since my gift to her was not charging her labor, which I would charge for any other bride. For her intended budget, this would be roughly $400. A pretty good gift, I thought. Bridal shower. She had planned her own bridal shower and asked all of us to contribute financially to it. Cool, no big deal. We were also asked to show up ahead of time to help with setup and food. Again, no big deal. I went over the night before to do some faux arrangements she wanted for the shower. Here, she proceeded to show me all of the stuff she and her mom had begun buying, completely changing the ideas she had for centerpieces. Not a big deal, but I did tell her that these new ideas would require more product, which would increase cost, pushing her out of the budget she had given me. The bridal shower went fine, but this is when the Bridezilla began to peek out a little. One of the other bridesmaids, 26 female, we'll call her J, and I had kind of hit it off, as we were the only two not related to the bride in some way or connected since childhood. Jay and her boyfriend were in the process of buying a house, and she had to meet with an inspector at the house that evening. She told Bride that she needed to leave around 6:15 to go meet the inspector. Bride was furious. Being a young people pleaser, Jay stuck around until 6:30 when I finally convinced her to go. I began cleaning up and asked Bride around 7 o'clock if I could split because things were winding down. She looked at me like I was crazy and said, "Yeah, it's like 7. The following day, she texts Jay telling her how upset she was that she left the bridal shower early and that she was being selfish. Oh, brother. First of all, I think it's a little crazy how she had the party goers set up the party, contribute to it financially, and then break down the party. I don't know. I feel like that's too much, especially considering that she also had a bachelorette party. I feel like you should pick one or the other. Like when my friend got married. Yeah, of course, we threw it for her. It was like a surprise for her. We booked this Airbnb, we set it up, we had her come afterwards, like we all chipped in, etc. And it was like a little girls' weekend trip thing. But then if she would have also, I don't even know what a bridal party is, a bridal shower is for. Why do people have bridal showers? Anyway, I don't know. I just feel like there's a limit to how much you should expect from your friends. And if they're going to help you with a bachelorette party and contribute in that way, you shouldn't also expect them to contribute for the bridal shower as well. Maybe I'm not thinking about this right. For people who plan to or have been married, let me know in the comments. I just feel like as a friend, I would feel a little taken advantage of. Like I'm just funding all these things that you want to do. Anyway, Opie says, bachelorette party. She had planned a 4-day bachelorette party, complete with themes for each day and a list of things we were expected to bring or contribute. A bit of backstory. In the months leading up to the bachelorette party, I had major surgery, lost my full-time job, been T-boned by someone totaling my vehicle, and gotten a new job. Jeez, she had a string of bad luck. I could not afford this trip. I have a husband and children, and I hadn't accumulated enough time to justify using what little PTO I had on this trip. I told her I wasn't going. She was aware of everything going on in my life and seemed really understanding. I said I would still pay for my portion of the house rental, but other than that, I couldn't commit to going. She told me to hold off on paying my portion of the house as a bunch of other girls had said the dates no longer worked for them, so things were being adjusted. I never heard another word about the trip, including how much I now owed for the house. That was gracious of her to even offer to pay for the house. But one night, Jay called me distraught. She and her boyfriend were supposed to close on their house on the first night of the trip, so she had contacted Bride, telling her she'd be down the next evening after work. Bride was still salty about Jay leaving the bridal shower early and became even more angry at the fact that Jay wouldn't be joining them until the next day. She called Jay a bad friend and selfish. Jay told me she couldn't take off work, and even going was becoming a huge financial burden for her since they were closing on a new house, so she thought joining them that Friday evening would be okay since she was still going. I told Jay I wasn't going, and she shouldn't feel bad about not going at this point because clearly Bride wasn't going to be super fun to be around since she's been essentially not speaking to her since the bridal shower. Jay decided not to attend the bachelorette party and spent the weekend moving into her new house, as she should. I feel like any good friend wouldn't be upset if someone can't attend because they have another thing going. It's not the end of the world. Flower nightmare. About a month out from the wedding, Bride contacted me with a spreadsheet of what she needed, along with inspo pictures of centerpieces. I priced accordingly, showing the discount I was giving as her gift, and sent it off to her, approximately $2,400. She responded with an updated spreadsheet, removing over half of the floral arrangements, and asked for an updated one. I didn't see that she had removed all but 6 centerpieces, so I sent an updated quote, approximately $1,200. She emailed back telling me that there must have been some confusion. I asked what she was confused about and reiterated that my pricing was equivalent to other florists in the area and I wasn't charging her labor since that was my gift to her. She said she wasn't confused, she just didn't realize flowers were so expensive and it was more than she wanted to spend. I updated the quote again, $755, and sent it her way. Was I annoyed? Yes. Was I justified? I don't know. I was under the impression that we had a plan that was going to cost X amount of dollars, and then that plan changed within a couple of months of the wedding, and my services were slowly being cut out. A few days later, Bride texted me expressing concerns over tension she was feeling from me and stated that if me doing the flowers was going to cause a rift in our relationship, then she would figure something else out. Listen, OP, I would have took that out and ran with it. You know what? You're right. I don't want to ruin what we have. Maybe it's better if someone else does the flowers. Yep. Looking back, I think this was her way of trying to get me to back out of doing the flowers because she thought I was too expensive but didn't want to be the bad guy. As we got closer to the wedding, I hadn't heard from her, nor had I received payment. My typical contract states that the event must be paid in full 30 days prior. I waived it because close personal friend. I sent a few reminder invoices that resulted in nothing. Crickets. The week of the wedding, I text her asking for payment by Friday. I had already ordered all of the flowers and my suppliers were going to be expecting payment. She told me that her mom was going to pay for the flowers and would send me a check. Her mom texted me verifying the total and where the check should be sent. I received the check in the mail that Friday. A check sounds suspicious. I would have to make sure that check actually went through before delivering any flowers, child. Rehearsal dinner. The night of the rehearsal dinner was awkward to say the least. Jay and I clung together like ugly ducklings as pretty much every other female in the group spent the evening shooting dirty looks our way and only speaking to us if they had to. Bride's mom approached me at one point asking if I'd received the check. I said I had and thanked her for sending it. We discussed when the reception hall would be open the next morning and what time I should arrive. She finished by asking me again if I had received the check. I said I had and thanked her again for taking care of it. The rest of the bridal party stayed at the hotel that night. I went home to make what little floral arrangements I was responsible for. The big day. I arrived at the venue the morning of the wedding, set out the 6 centerpieces I had been responsible for, and created the arch installation they had wanted. Once finished, I headed up to the suite where everyone was getting ready. Jay rushed up to me and said she was so glad I was there because the whole morning had been so awkward. I found the bride and greeted her excitedly. She gave me a very icy hey. Jay and I spent the rest of the morning receiving icy glares from the other bridesmaids, and one went so far as to hang around whenever we were talking. What's the issue? Why is there so much animosity between the other bridesmaids and them? I don't like how they obviously have been talking about them behind their back, but why? At one point, Bride's mom showed up and began complaining about the bouquet. Maid of honor pulled me aside and asked if I would cut a bunch of the greenery out of the bouquet. I died a little inside as I cut the best parts of the greenery out. I had used premium greenery and flowers for this event. They weren't cheap. The ceremony and reception went off without a hitch. Pictures were taken, dinner was served. Jay and I clung to each other because everyone was treating us like garbage. At the end of the night, Jay went to say goodbye to the bride and groom. He proceeded to tell her that he wasn't sure what Jay and I did, but we were on the bride's crap list. At that moment, Bride came and whisked the groom away. Jay and I left, not staying for the after party and the hotel bar. I went home livid. I had never been treated so badly and regretted not just packing up and leaving when I arrived and figured out the vibe of the day. A few weeks later, I reached out to Bride asking how her honeymoon was, offering to meet for brunch and talk, and asking for a vase she had that I needed for an upcoming event I had on my calendar. I still haven't heard from her. I've realized over the course of 40 years that no response is a response. I know there are multiple sides to a story, so this is mine. I don't think I'm the a-hole, but I could be wrong. I don't understand what's going on here. Like, for you to be so entitled that you're upset that someone can't make one event for your wedding festivities or whatever. I understand being upset, but like then to essentially be having all the bridesmaids ganging up on like these two people, and it just doesn't make sense. And then if you really feel that way, why even still include me in the bridal party? Now you got me feeling uncomfortable. It's not worth it to stay in contact with someone like that. So for the comments, Bouncy Bouncy Seal said, my first thought when the mother of the bride kept asking if we'd received the check was that she planned to do a stop payment on it. Dependent Panic said that would be a bingo. Right, I was thinking something fishy was about to happen with the check. I'm surprised she didn't mention anything because, first of all, why send a check? It's 2024. Who still uses checks when instant money transfers exist? But anyways, Idols at Cranky said, sadly, this whole story is an illustration of why we should both set boundaries and hold them, and why we should trust our instincts. Your gut told you at the beginning that you'd be uncomfortable as a bridesmaid and you should decline. It would have been far better if you'd heeded that internal warning. Then you crossed the boundary of vendor versus friend. In my experience, trying to do both only works out when the person receiving your services, in this case the bride, is extremely laid back and willing to accept whatever conditions are set by the friend providing the service. That is rarely the case with any bride, and when you're starting with someone who's already pressuring you to do something you don't want to do, be a bridesmaid, you're clearly setting yourself up for trouble. I'm not saying you're the a-hole here, not at all, but I do think you got a painful lesson in why it's a good idea to trust yourself and a bad idea to mix business with pleasure. Slenderman is my dad said she only asked you to get services and thought you would donate the flowers. Nightmare Gerbil said this, bride thought her mature, more established friend would volunteer to donate her time and all the flowers and decorations for the bridal shower, bachelorette, rehearsal dinner, and wedding, and maybe even pay for the bachelorette outright in exchange for the privilege of getting to hang out with the younger, cooler girls. OP didn't play, and now Bride and her mom are upset that they had to actually give OP the money they had agreed on. Did you get the check? Oh man. Live Western 1389 said, there may be multiple sides to the story here, but they all lead to the same thing. This friend is not only a Bridezilla, she's tied for number 1. Chicago K8 said, the bride sounds like a pill, but you're 40 years old and presumably more life experienced than the bride. Honestly, I am a bit surprised that you didn't, at the very outset, set expectations for how much time and money you could spend, and most importantly, set a limit for what you would spend on flowers. The drama could have been avoided or at least diminished. Opie said, that's the thing. A limit and plan was set for flowers. Then she changed it a few weeks before the wedding. As for the other stuff, there really wasn't communication with the bridal party until things were already set up. It was just a really weird situation. Anyway, that is the last read of the video. She definitely sounded like a Bridezilla to me. Her attitude and the way she was acting, I wouldn't want to be associated with her anymore after that. The last story will be a palate cleanser from the Faith and Humanity subreddit. So just a reminder, if you are not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And let me get into this last story. Stranger helped my family and I will never forget him. When I was a kid, my dad took my brother and I shopping for school clothes. It was during the 2007-2008 financial crisis and he had been laid off work and was struggling to find a job. My mom managed a fast food restaurant, so we had some income, but not enough. Even though I was young, I realized that we weren't the best off when it came to money. Our house was being foreclosed, so my parents were already struggling to find somewhere cheaper for us to stay. Going shopping with my dad and brother while we were already struggling seemed strange, but we needed new clothes for the start of the school year. We each got 2 outfits and 1 pair of shoes. My brother wanted a pair of basketball shorts, and my dad couldn't say no, so he grabbed them as well. While we were checking out, I remember my dad watching the price go up and up on the register, and he seemed to be more and more defeated as the price went up. Once everything was scanned, he realized he didn't have enough money to pay for everything. He asked the cashier to take off the extra shorts my brother asked for, but he still didn't have enough. He apologized to the man behind us while he tried to figure out what to take off. I told my dad to take off my pair of shoes and a pair of my pants. I could live with my old clothes so my brother could have new clothes. My dad was on the verge of tears when he told the cashier to take them off. Before he could pay, the man behind us asked the cashier to add them back on. My dad was confused before the man gave the cashier a $100 bill and told her to give the change to my dad. My dad argued with him for a minute, saying he couldn't take his money. Times were hard on everyone, not just us. The man insisted, and my dad started crying. My dad asked for his phone number so he could pay him back in the future, but the man told my dad to help someone else who needed it in the future, and that would be enough. Wow. My brother and I had new clothes for the school year because of a stranger who saw we were struggling and decided to help, purely out of the goodness of his heart. I, to this day, still remember exactly what he looked like. Whenever I see people struggling, I remember his face and try to help them as best as I can. I might not have a lot to give, but I give what I can. Wow, that's a great story to end off this video full of weddingzillas. I just love to hear stories about people just doing good out of the kindness of their heart, not expecting anything in return. Yes, we need more of that in today's world. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.